All right. Welcome to another edition of Point Counterpoint. This is Robert.
And I'm Sajid.
And I'm Jacob.
So today, I would like to ask you guys, why is everyone so angry? It feels like to me that this is the most angry and divisive we've been since the Vietnam War, and I was like 3 when the Vietnam War ended. But I mean, I've never seen this level of, I don't want to say vitriol, anger, no, just disunion ever between not just our country and you know, the Democrats and Republicans, but just in the world. It really, you know, I don't think this is the night when the lights went out all in Europe, but it's starting to feel pretty damn close. So what the hell is happening, everybody? What do you think?
I mean, I think that I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of pressure, you know, with the fears over Russia and Ukraine, as well as the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and Afghanistan. And I mean, you know, we've had such turmoil these last couple of years with COVID, and, you know, the election was very controversial, and it feels like, you know, the perfect storm. You know, you have escalating tensions, you have a rise of, you know, divisive, you know, like no one's getting along, no traction is being made, and at the same time, you know, we're facing multiple global crises at once. And so you know, I just hope that we can somehow come together in a way, because it's really, frankly, it's very frightening. I kind of had a skeptical outlook on Ukraine and Russia. I had sort of an optimistic an outlook on it, trying to.
That what the hell?
and now it's, I mean, tanks are in Ukraine now,
Yep.
And it's I mean, it's very scary. It's very, very scary. And Biden, I think, imposed some sanctions, a couple of other things. I haven't looked at the list yet, but it's just a lot of process.
It is. And I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on again, which, you know, I'm sure some people in the audience might think that I wear. Is this being done on purpose? I personally think people are trying to be divided on purpose. I do think some of these situations are being driven by other forces. And for purposes, it's hard to prove this crap, and I do sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think there's some truth to it. There are people that would benefit with America being weak. There are countries that would benefit with America being divided. You can't tell me this wouldn't help certain groups. And I think these groups are fanning the flames with the division. Because they're like, you know, a house divided, you know, can't defend itself. It's as simple as that. You think China and Russia's upset that we're divided? Hell no. A lot of people will be thrilled about it. So you can't tell me there's not motivation for some people to be okay with this. And if they're okay with this, do they have the ability to push us? I think all of it's done on purpose. And there's justifications why I can see why they would want it done. And the people that suffer the most are, you know, ordinary people. It's funny because actually I do think, saying something nice about progressives for a change, I think progressives and conservatives, for the most part, really do care about poor and middle class. We have completely different views of how to make things better. But I do think at heart, we want the same things. It's just completely opposite of how we get there, you know. And I do think, you know, our actual opposition is, you know, the powers that be. And I think history, for the most part, has always been the haves against have-nots. It's just dressed in different names and different circumstances. And I think the same crap's playing out right now.
Sujay, what do you think, man?
Yeah, man. See, I don't just think that this is a political issue, but it's more of a cultural issue, because like what this podcast has highlighted, people from both the sides who can come together, can peacefully assemble and have a conversation. And what is being portrayed out in the media or whatever, they're like, no, you just can't. It's, if you're here, you're there, you're here, and if you're there, you're there, and that's it. You just can't come together. And that is being done on purpose, to allude to Rob's point, because if we come together, no matter where we are, they know they're going to lose. Because if you, especially what COVID has done, is that it has just exposed the hypocrisy that, that's in these politicians, not only in the West but throughout the world. It's like, rules for me, rules for you, but not for me.
Yes.
And no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, you're on the left, you're on the right, you're in the middle, it doesn't really matter. When you see that, there are people out there, like, for example, dude, there was a Super Bowl, right, 2 weeks back.
Yep.
You
I noticed.
see the hypocrisy out there. And
Yes.
that there are kids, literally as young as 5 years old, who are forced to mask up. And then, we've all scientifically, we all know the side effects of masking for a long time. Just taking your own carbon dioxide.
Speech issues have went up like 300%.
Absolutely. And so when you see that, and you see all these celebrities just congregating like it's nothing, that tends to make your blood boil, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's been a crap load of hypocrisy with
Absolutely.
the rich and powerful not following their own rules.
And it's
And
not just now, Rob. It's
sides.
like, yeah,
That
and
is
it's not
both
just
sides.
now. It's not just now. It's been happening ever since the beginning of the pandemic. If you cast your mind back to what happened with, Boris Johnson and his, these parties that he threw up when,
I remember.
yeah. So it's not just there; it's everywhere.
It is.
And that is obviously the reason why the people are so divided. And they're doing this on purpose. Just that, just so that we don't come together.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, it's fascinating because from the beginning, and I think this with COVID, I feel like actually on the spectrum of it, I feel like it was less extreme, but diseases or infections, they always, they'll always kill more poor people than they'll kill rich people. That's just how it works, and no matter what side of the aisle you're on, or political beliefs, if you have like a significant part of power in the United States, you are rich and you are powerful. And so the thing is, COVID, like most of these politicians never had to worry about like HIV or AIDS or anything like that, while, like a huge chunk of the world goes through an epidemic of it, I feel like, and when initially COVID set on, I feel like they thought, oh, this could never kill someone who's rich and powerful like me, but we've seen politicians die from it. But I think that there's this disconnect, because why would they have to wear a mask? They have, they have all of their vaccines, of course, they have a physician, they have access to healthcare, but healthcare is one of the least affordable things, I think, in this entire nation, and so when you have that like monopoly on healthcare, power, and money, the COVID, who's going to tell you to wear a mask, like it's frustrating because like even like all the politicians and celebrities, they do it and they don't even think about it,
They don't.
It's very frustrating because I actually think, I think now that we're easing the mask mandates, depending on the county, I feel like it might be might be available to do now. But I like the idea of wearing masks in areas that there's a lot of infection or potential to spread a lot of COVID. But it is frustrating because there's a complete
very
lack
soon,
of.
But very soon you'll see COVID just turned as the normal flu, man. Just wait for it. It's
But there's also,
they're just waiting for the elections, because if they
Yes.
have this till the elections, they're not getting votes.
CDC admitted it was hiding some data
Yeah,
because it didn't want to scare people from testing the vaccine.
Right.
Those are things
Right.
that does not make people trust the government.
I think that's one of the same reports that came out of Scotland, I think 2 weeks back, where they hid the data from the vaccines.
Yeah. And I mean, because it's being misused, and maybe Jacob might not think it's being misused. I personally think it's being used for political gain. Obviously, it's a real thing, but but most politicians are happy to milk a crisis. So it's not shocking that someone wouldn't want to milk a
And
crisis.
and
But
why
I
would
do think it's being done for political gain. And one shocking thing I did a poll at one of my sites. And I asked conservatives, would you be surprised if another pandemic appears before the election? It was a loaded question implying that something will be done on purpose. It's 100% people think they will not be surprised if something appears before the next election. And whether you think everyone is are conspiracists or they're nuts or crazy, there's a huge distrust of the government right now. Massive. And I really don't know if it's going to be repaired anytime soon. The news, trust in the news has fallen to the lowest level ever recorded. Trust in Congress is under 20%. I mean, every single institution, there's a lot of damage done from COVID that I don't know if the institutions have noticed. And I've noticed it, but I don't know if the powers that be realize that, that no one believes anymore. And the problem is with governments that like to be in power, once you stop at persuasion, you're only left with force to stay in power. And that happens time and again, which brings me to Canada. That the emergency powers are still happening, even though the trucker thing is over. That should worry people. And I see a lot of people applauding it. And I don't think they get it because, again, I've said this before, once you lose your freedoms, it's gone for everybody. Like all the people that overthrew the Tsar. When Stalin was done with them, they all got shot. I mean, freedom works for everybody, and if it's not there, it affects everybody. Sooner or later, it will be your turn. And even if it was my party, I would be very worried if they said, well, we're going to keep the emergency powers. And I'll be like, no, you're not. That everyone's okay with that worries me greatly. That everyone's like, well, the truckers are going, let's keep the emergency powers. That a third of the country or whatever, half the country is okay with this is shocking to me.
It's interesting you say that because I just read an article yesterday, from 2014, which said why Canada with Trudeau is heading towards being a dictatorship.
Huffington Post, I read that. Huffington Post.
That was in 2014, man.
I forgot everything it said, but I do remember reading that article. Jacob, did you see that? It was in Huffington Post, man. I was shocked.
I'll share it on the group. Yeah, you can check it out.
I'm going to go back and read it, but because I forgot it, but I remember reading that. I'm like, wow, they were right.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not big on Canadian politics personally, but I'm trying to figure out when, I guess, the emergency order, I can't really tell you it did end because I don't see anything on it ending or really any news on it that much in general.
It was extended. It was continued. It got approved by like the House of Canada.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, they just left, but emergency powers are still needed.
Yeah, I don't think the Senate has done anything yet. And I'm not completely 100% sure about their government. So there could be some final step that I'm not sure about. But yeah, that people are like okay with it. Because I tell you what, man, even if it's my party, I don't want them doing that shit. I mean, I don't care. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It's bad. It could be like my favorite pops. No, I don't care. If it's my father, I wouldn't like it. I mean,
and Robin, what's scary is that none of the prominent world leaders had anything to say about that.
I noticed that too.
Nothing, zero whatsoever.
I'm like disturbed. It makes me wonder. The craziest thing about the last, 4 to 5 or 6 years is a lot of things I felt I understood I was dead wrong in. And
like what?
I never thought there was a deep state. There really is. I never thought that that basically the Republicans were happier with Democrats winning than like a MAGA candidate. I would never think that. I mean, that basically it's one big ass freaking party, and all they do is lie to and like misuse the other two sides. I didn't think that was the case. I didn't think that we're in some ways an oligarchy, and I think we are. Maybe I was naive, but they're either how I view my country and its institutions is quite different than I thought it was 4 or 5 years ago. And maybe I'm wrong now, but that's how I feel.
Now, I have a question. Have you felt like that since Biden has got elected, or did
No.
you start to feel that you started to feel that before Biden's
Correct.
election?
Yes.
What
It's
was the
just-
time? You said 4 or 5 years ago you started thinking that?
Little steps, like, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but I was a liberal Democrat for a really long time. Then
Really?
'cause
Wow.
that's how I was born. I mean, I grew up in a Democratic family in Baltimore City. There aren't Republicans in Baltimore City, man. Well, there is, but I'm kidding. But I mean, that's you, that's your school, that's all your family, that's everybody. And I became independent. And then I started well, it's not like I think I'm really a party person. I have a certain policy, and whoever's closest to that.
Rob
gets
got
my-
red pilled. Huh?
So yeah, I mean, if there was some other person, and if they had a legitimate chance of winning the election, I would support them. But it's just little things. A little thing here, a little thing there. Like, I'll give you an example, and this isn't what was a big shock for me, but I remember after 9/11, like Bush was like, we're gonna kick the terrorist ass. And I was like happy about it. And all these people like, oh, I hate Bush. Like, somebody just killed 3,000 people. Who gives a crap about Bush? What is your problem? This is we should be focused on, like, why are you so partisan? There should be certain things that should stop at the water's edge. Like Obama, who I'm not a fan of, killed bin Laden. He ordered that raid. I have nothing but praise for him. He did it. It was daring. He deserves all the credit. And he killed somebody that the country should have been united against. Partisan politics should have ended right there. And I don't understand why certain people aren't united on certain things. Like the lack of consistency also kind of bothered me. The double standards, and there's a lot of double standards, and that's both parties. And I just see it more and more. And I guess I've been questioning everything now. How much of what I said and read was a lie. I used to read the Baltimore Sun from one end to the other. I thought journalists were like heroes, and I worship journalism. And now I don't trust them with a 10-foot pole. It's like, that's just my opinion, but that's how I feel.
That's the case everywhere.
It's been little
Journalism is dead.
steps.
Journalism is dead.
And it's just getting worse. And it's just seeing what works and what doesn't. Like, I mean, it's nice to be taught this one thing you're in school. Then you go out in the real world. Like, I work in some of the worst cities in Baltimore. That changes perceptions, like, what? That's not what I hear. That's not what I read. Like, who's getting hurt, and who do you see actually trying to change things? Who do you see hiding behind those kind of things? What you see with your own eyes. You see something with your own eyes and disagrees with the paper. I'm following my own eyes. I'm kind of
Yeah,
preaching now, but that's just my
The
feeling.
the thing is, after Trump got elected in 2016, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because people just snapped on the other side. And what we're seeing now is that is how they've always been. It's just that they put on a front, to hide all their, they hate and everything. But see, and the surprising thing is that Trump did unite a lot of people, but only on his side.
Correct.
The other side got even more alienated. And and looking at him, looking at how abrasive he is, and looking at how confrontational he can be, he's people on the other side are never going to like him. That's just not going to happen. And I think the divide is only going to increase.
It's interesting because I've only had like one Democrat ever ask me, like, why did you vote for Trump? Because she thought, like, I hear all you guys are racist. So, and I actually respect her for actually asking me these questions. Why'd you vote for Trump? And I said, it's simple. I can't stand DC. He said he's gonna smash the swamp. That's all I care about. I don't trust DC, and that was the reason why I liked him. And actually, in that way, he failed. but I mean, I had my motivations. DC is my opponent now.
Yeah.
And that's
I
why
mean,
so many people are angry. They
I
realize
mean,
their friends aren't who they thought they were.
I can tell you why I was angry. I mean, it's hard even now to be like, because I mean, like to align yourself with him means to align yourself with a lot of things that I'm just not okay with. Like the things that he said. There's so many different things that he said that I'm just like, wow, I'm so not okay with. When he made fun of like disabled people or like the million like racist things that he said or the sexual assault allegations or all sorts of years and years and years. I mean, you can go back and watch his reality TV show. You can look at his taxes. He's just a piece of shit. I mean, like I hate him. But the thing is, like, and let me finish.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like while like Joe Biden went for this sort of in the middle, like uniting force, I feel like Joe Biden has not been any like. I mean, I feel like he's been in a way a bit more uniting of people, but I don't. It's different because Sujay, like you said, Trump built his base off of Republicans. He has almost 92% Republican approval rating. Like he is very popular amongst Republicans, but obviously he's not getting anything on the other side. But it doesn't feel like with Biden. I mean, I feel like he's gaining a little bit on the Republican side, but he's losing a lot of the Democrat side too. So it kind of it doesn't feel like the mend was like fixed. I just feel like we could really use a great fresh candidate for president. 'Cause, we just need a
Guys,
good president, a good leader right now.
guys, two things. Okay, so the other day there was this interview that was happening with one of the Canadian government officials, and what he said was really startling to me. He said that all the people donating to the truckers, they're all from a pro-Trump movement. So the term Trump right now, I think at least in the Western world, it's a sort of a political party in itself. I mean, that's how it's viewed as. So he's a Canadian. He's saying that pro-Trump groups are donating to the truckers. So that's not just in the US, but in Canada as well. So now it's just like a different party in itself. And second thing, yes, you're right that Trump did a lot of things. He's like he's a douche. He's a douchebag. He has a lot of things against him that go personally or whatever. All the sexual assaulting and everything. At the same time, Joe Biden is no considered even he's an equally biggest comeback.
Well, the difference is,
Yeah.
and we should have an episode on Trump only, because I think I can give you examples of the media not covering Joe Biden stories and making Trump stories page page one over and over. I mean, like the Hunter Biden, they sat on the Hunter Biden story until after the election. Dude, I knew about that like 6 months before the election. You can't tell me the media is fair. And I
The
don't
New York
think
Post got
Trump's-
censored,
Yeah.
right?
I do want to say a big reason why Trump's first impeachment happened was because Roger Stone specifically withheld the information on Hillary Clinton until an advantageous time in the 2016 campaign. So, like I just want to say that, I do agree with you that the media is, going to lie to you and going to try to pander to its audience. But I will say that Trump just sells better than Biden. That is a big reason why like you will see Trump in like page one news and Joe Biden, because Joe Biden simply is not as interesting as Donald Trump. I mean, I agree with more things Joe Biden does. I would say I probably like Joe Biden more, definitely, but like Trump sells better. I'm much more likely to read a news article about Trump than about
That's
Joe
obvious.
Biden.
CNN
I mean,
lost
because
90% of
it's
their
just
viewers.
he's just. I mean, he's evil and awful, and I hate him.
I don't
in my
think
opinion.
he's evil, but that's a
Yeah,
different
but in my opinion, but
we should have a Trump episode.
he's very entertaining. I will say
We should have
guys,
a Trump
that's not
guys,
necessarily a good thing.
guys, and one more thing. I think the comedians, like, over at Saturday Night Live or Jimmy Kimmel and all those guys, I think that every day they wish Trump was in office, because every bloody joke that they crack right now, everything they post on YouTube, it has, all the videos that have Trump in it, they're the ones that have the most views. So, because of comedy in some ways is dead without Trump, I feel.
Well, I mean, it's very
Because there's no
often,
punching bag.
or not, or rather rare. It's very rare that you have, God, I don't want to compare them in any way as to who they are as people, but similar to like John F. Kennedy, very famous before he was president, like doing, he was an actor actually. And Trump, was big into reality television. I mean, he was in Home Alone. I mean, he's a cultural, he used to be viewed in a different way, but I think always kind of viewed as a rich, just a rich businessman, or would
Obnoxious businessman.
yeah. I mean, I remember his show that what's it? What was Trump's show called in the 80s?
All I know is you're fired.
Yeah, exactly. You just fired people. You would go in and say you're fired, and it was
The Apprentice.
yes, The Apprentice. So that type of person becoming president. I mean, that's a
But-
media like salivation. Like just
but dude, there's one thing, okay, like, see, you might disagree with him personally, and you might have issues with what he's done, with choices in his life, but then there's got to be a point where you have to look at things that are outside your control, and see, okay, yes, these are something that are in my favor, like, there's no shortage of food, the fuel prices are less, we're not getting in any new wars. And if you see, especially ever since he left, it's all been chaotic, man. And I think regardless of where you are on the political side, you've got to miss him in some point, in some point.
We should have a Trump episode, and all I'll say is I think there's a massive difference between Trump's personality and his positions. I'm not going to defend him as a person. I just and because I don't know him, and I don't trust anything the media says. I think the media would crucify the Dalai Lama if it got them political points. So I don't care, but politically, that's a different story, and I think I should be a separate episode. But I'm going to go back to why people are angry. But I'll give you one more example. Epstein's bank account was never frozen. Who's that rapper that got molested a girl, young girl?
R. Kelly.
Thank you. Not kicked off of Spotify. The double standard is so freaking bad here. Truckers' accounts are getting frozen without due process. The trucks are being taken without due process. Joe Rogan's getting banned, and pedophiles aren't. I mean, Trump got kicked off of Twitter. The Taliban is still on there. I'm okay with a lot of things if you're fair, but the double standard is getting so bad, it's making me reject the institution as a whole.
I will say in 2018, Spotify removed R. Kelly's music. From its official playlists.
It's still there. It's still there.
Yeah, still there. 4.6 million monthly listeners.
I'm actually okay with a lot of things as long as you're fair in applying them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think R. Kelly shouldn't be on, I think that's weird. I mean, I think Michael Vick shouldn't be on sports talk.
It's a double standard.
I just feel like sometimes, I don't mean to be too cancel culture or anything, but sometimes when you have somebody that does something really bad, I would just rather not have them on TV as a ambassador for the people,
but
or as a platform, I don't think R. Kelly's music should be on Spotify because he's a rapist. I don't want Karl Malone at basketball games because he's a pedophile. There's I don't want to see Bill Cosby. I don't want to see Louis C.K. I don't want to see these people. They're awful. I don't want to see them publicly.
How come do you think we never saw Jeffrey Epstein's list?
Oh, dude. I mean, I think. I'm not going to debate you on Jeffrey Epstein because
So a lot of
It- it-
politicians are on that list. It's being
like
discussed.
well, that's
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
thing. I just want to say the one thing I will say is I don't know for sure if it was a setup or not, but I will say it was mighty convenient. It was mighty convenient for basically every politician. So I
Sure.
want to say let's not make this a
It-
Republican Democrat thing, because
It's
there's
not.
pictures of him with everybody.
It's not.
So
His friend.
so I just
committed
want to say,
suicide
like, if
too.
Yeah.
we're gonna say this, I just want to say it was not a Democrat plot or Republican plot. It
His
was
friend-
everybody there.
His
If
friend.
it was,
His
I
friend
don't know for
committed
sure.
suicide this week. Did you know that?
Yes,
Exactly,
yes,
in
I
the
saw
exact same-
that.
yeah,
I was
exactly,
like,
yeah.
what?
Mhm.
What?
You know, and how coincidental, man. The cameras in the prison just had to go off at that
I
very moment.
literally was reading about that the other day, and I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It was in France too, I believe.
Yep.
Like,
Here's I would like you guys to research one thing. I can never say the dude's name. The head of the WEF, Klaus something. What's his name, CJ?
Klaus Schwab.
There's a video saying how basically a good portion of Parliament has connections to him financially. See if you can find that video.
probably.
My point is actually something that you said earlier, that a lot of you, and you're referring to companies have too much influences in our government and other governments. I think companies as well as financial organizations have too much influences in our government, and it's becoming an oligarchy as opposed to a republic. And I think whether you're liberal, conservative, socialist, anarchist, we're in a shitload of trouble if we don't work together to fix this. Look and see if he said it. You know, the WEF, they went out and said, well, in 10 years, you're going to own nothing and you'll be happy. And then they're like, well, we never said that. It's in print.
That's Agenda 21, right?
Yeah,
Project
it's in
2030.
print. Are you shitting me? You know,
Yeah,
but,
I mean, it's fishy. I mean, I cannot, like, that's one of those things. I mean, like, it's so hard for me to speak on, because I can't go to any like research or studies or people that, you know, like, no politicians talk about it, you know, like,
they won't.
not even, you know, like, I mean, it's a taboo, you know, like, among politicians, and even the ones that I like, the ones that I feel like aren't corrupted, still don't even talk about it, because it's not. I don't think it's good. I think it's just going to be divisive. It's a bad political move, and man, I just don't like it. It's freaky to think about, but it's also like incredibly not surprising. So that's just how things are. I mean, I believe what Prince Andrew.
Prince
Yep.
Andrew, yeah.
Yeah,
Andrew.
he just reached a settlement
Yep.
for like sex abuse as well. And I remember watching there was an interview of a prince who was talking about how he was literally staying with Epstein, and was just like
Jeez.
I mean, it was just, I mean, I think it was Prince. I think it was Prince Andrew, but yeah, I mean, it's just like, this is, I mean, that's British royalty, you know, like
It is.
that is literally, I think, like,
that's just the tip of the iceberg as
It
to what
is.
they can do.
yeah.
Yeah.
This wouldn't happen and be under guard if both parties weren't in on it. There's no
Yeah,
way.
I mean, it's at that point, it's so deep that, you know, there's nothing you can even do about it.
I hope
Rob,
not.
and,
You know,
Rob, and
like-
this, Rob, and one more thing,
I
when
hope
you
not.
know the when you first said that, why are people so angry? It's just that they get triggered so easily, man. Like, you know, it's been happening since 2010, I think, wherein just people don't just, you know, they just don't have the ability to take a joke. It's
Well,
and it's
full
sad
point.
because, you know, because if you meet strangers and you want to talk freely, like, you have to think twice to say what you want to say, because, oh, is he going to get offended? Is she going to get offended?
Yeah, I agree, but I think there's also legitimate reason to be angry and not just,
No.
you know, social justice warriors.
Absolutely,
I'll give you an example.
absolutely. Yeah.
This week, the Biden administration cut off any new leases for oil and gas. Our gas prices doubled. That's going to increase. It's especially going to increase since Russia's doing all the invasion shit. So we're going to cut off new drilling? Do you want gas prices to be high? They're not stupid. They do want prices to be high. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it.
I honestly think that, you guys should start the Keystone Pipeline back, man, seriously, with especially
what?
what's going on in Russia. The Keystone Pipeline.
Oh yeah, but that's not going to
Yeah.
happen. But here's the
You know,
thing, and here's the thing. Again, my personal view on all this is we're making so much improvements with fusion going on, like every month or two there's something new. It's going to be legit in 20 years. So you know what? All this coal and gas is going to be gone in my lifetime, assuming I'm healthy. That's
mean,
why I
I
don't
don't-
really care.
I don't really know personally.
There's a lot I can go
Yeah.
on to it because I'm a big science nerd. But
You can go on for hours, man, hours on it.
there's a
about fusion.
lot of improvement in fusion. Fusion is starting to become practical. I know the joke, fusion's only 20 years away and always will be. But I mean, I can go into detail at some of the changes. I mean, some of the improvements they've been making. So I literally think it's in my lifetime. And when that
Well-
happens, there is no energy crisis.
I want to go back briefly and
Okay,
just say that
sure.
I want to say that I disagree with the Keystone Pipeline because it goes through indigenous land, and like it we've taken so much from the Native Americans already. I think it's really shitty whenever we
Would you be
do
okay with it?
anything. Maybe I don't know. The thing is like with in the way that the United States is inherently set up, most of the time when you do like a pipeline or something, most of the time you're just targeting the lower class and making their situation even worse. But at the same time, like I don't know, like can we just do like it's
but I'm-
not
but I'm
fair to
sure
mine
that-
overseas, either, because it does the same thing for them. I think a really important thing is investing in like sustainable energy, so we don't have to deal with like the pipeline.
But sustainable
with
energy,
sustainable
can't
energy
power
is
all of
it's-
our
it's-
energy needs right now.
Exactly, and it's not reliable, man.
It can't
What
power.
then?
That's why California is having rolling blackouts. We're not there for it to power all of our energy needs. We will have rolling blackouts. That's why I think it's a mute issue in 20 or 30 years, because fusion's going to solve it for us. We just have to get there. And everyone's like, well, electric cars. What do you think the energy comes from an electric car? I mean, either way, it's energy. And there are solutions. And one thing I actually will give Jacob and Jay credit for is they're at least willing to work and meet in the middle to fix a problem. If everybody was like that, we would have half of our problems gone, because there is solutions where both of us will grudgingly accept. I mean, you can have a damn pipeline, just if you want to stick it somewhere else, fine. I mean, you want to work towards something, okay, but have a backup plan. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
there's got to be
solutions
an alternative,
Don't
right?
politicize
Instead of
it.
going through the indigenous land, there's got to be an alternative to the Keystone Pipeline. I'm sure
I'm
there
sure
is.
there is.
Yeah,
It,
exactly.
it's definitely good. I mean, I like I said, it's you need the gas because the reality of the situation is right now that's the system that we operate on. But I just don't, it's just so we've destroyed indigenous, lands here for hundreds of years. The least we can do is like just leave them
Yeah.
alone.
Well, I think there's a solution we
Now.
both could be happy with.
Yeah. But I think we should probably wrap up for today. I
Yeah.
think we've hit on a lot of things, probably a lot to chew on for everyone. But thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah, I've been too
Um,
nice to Jacob, so I have to sign off. I have not been my usual difficult self.
Wow,
Yeah.
thanks. Well, I appreciate y'all, and thank you
Nice
everybody
catching
for
up,
listening.
guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone.
Okay.
Have a good one. Have a great day, everybody.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Yeah.